I made the declaration. So that's important. Making a declaration of some sort for what you believe and what you want, your authentic life has to happen. And if you don't make the declaration, then other people will declare your life for you.
Be the change you want to see. Make a difference by giving your money a purpose, a mission to do good. Welcome to Money with Mission, where we show you how to create passive income so that you have options for how to work and how to live your life while leaving a legacy of positive social impact.
Welcome back to Money with Mission. Hey guys, today we have Dr. Vikram Raya. Dr. Raya or Vikram is a functional medicine physician. First, he was a cardiologist, interventional cardiologist, and has done so many things that I'm not even going to try to go through it all. It'll be in the show notes. We're going to talk about some things about how he got to where he is and learn how we can all do more with our lives without stressing ourselves more. And I think that's one of the things we get worried about is like, how could I ever do more than I'm already doing? Let's get into it. Welcome to the show. We've already been talking for a long time, you guys.
Thank you, Felicia, for allowing me to be on your podcast. I'm super excited. Love the mission you're on, Money with Mission. And I think it's an awakening for all the audience out there for the journey you're helping people go on.
Thank you. And you too. Full transparency, we met each other on Vikram's podcast. I was on there a few months ago and we just had a great conversation. So I wanted to bring it to you guys. So Vikram, let's talk about your relationship with money and what it was like when you were a child and how that changed over time.
That's such an interesting question. And I'll have to make myself a little bit vulnerable because it wasn't the best relationship, to be honest with you. I was born in a small town in India. My parents are straight, like they're offspring. They're essentially products of like old school Indian villages, no running water, studying by candlelight kind of thing. Their swimming pool was like a agricultural reservoir that they just was dug out of water. I mean, dug out of the ground that they swam in for fun. And so it was an interesting time, but they worked hard, they struggled, the typical, successful American immigrant story. And thankfully they brought us here to the United States, which, I mean, it truly is been like the land of opportunity. I mean, I can't imagine having this kind of story anywhere else in the world. That being said, we were a straight middle class family. It was a big deal to go to Pizza Hut for dinner, growing up in the 80s. My dad lost a ton of money when the market crashed, Black Tuesday or Black Monday or something in the 87, I think. Getting nice clothes, getting nice things, it was not common. There's no other doctor in our family. My dad was a engineer. My mom was a housewife. And me and my brother, my parents would always say, "Oh, look at that doctor," or "Look at that successful person out there." But it was not us. And then my mom and dad fought. Like literally, it was very, very loud and very contentious marriage because they would fight about money all the time. How we didn't have any. On top of that, we lived in an apartment complex most of my young life. Since I was born till the age of 14, I was living in apartments.
Okay.
And so that was my frame of reference. Now, me and my brother are a little bit different. Like he's chill, he's relaxed, he's take it easy. I'm like, dude,
Are you the oldest? Are you the oldest?
I'm the oldest, right? So I'm like, I don't want to deal with this crap as I grow up. Like, and so people call me materialistic perhaps. People say, "Hey, why are you so focused on money?" I go, "I'm not focused on money. I just don't want to be poor. I just don't want to be like," and middle class felt like poor to me at that time, meaning everyone else had better things than me, clothes, car. I mean, you name it, they had it. And thankfully, my parents gave me the greatest gift they did, which was hard work, the values, and the thought process and the hunger to be better. And they've always supported me. They always pushed me. That's what drives me now, Felicia.
Okay. It sounds like to me that your family kind of mindset around money was more of a scarcity, is that everybody else could have it, but not us. Does that sound
Yeah. I mean, that was it. I mean, my dad always had big dreams, but at least at the beginning of his life, it didn't seem like that was going to happen.
Okay. So now, just from talking to you, I feel like you have more of a abundance mindset and there's enough for everybody and all that there's like, just because somebody else has money doesn't mean that I can't have it also, or the fact that I have it means that we can share it all. Do you know when that transition happened?
I guess it happened when, there's some of your population may resonate with what I'm going to say. In the Indian immigrant population, you can be either a doctor, a lawyer, or a loser, right? So it was pretty guided where I was going to go with my path. So I studied hard, went to school, and I was guided to be a doctor. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll look into it. But then the interesting thing happened was I actually liked it because it combined science, it combined people, combined, cutting edge stuff. And I was like, oh, this is cool. I actually enjoy it. So my whole thing was to be a doctor. And the thing was, I had no money principles. I had no money tools, I guess, growth strategies. It was really like, oh, okay, I'm going to work hard. I'll take as much loan and debt as possible because I know when I'm a doctor, I'll have made it and I don't have to
Yep.
worry.
Yep.
And so I
Yep.
went into debt, like as a resident, as a fellow. I went around the world. I had a relocation loan from Citibank for $12,000. And instead of using to relocate to Georgetown from Atlanta, I used it to go around the world with a buddy of mine. And so then I went to more debt, right? And so these are the stupid things and the principles that we as physicians sometimes have growing up. And we're like, okay, once I become an attending, everything's better. I'm going to have the doctor house, the doctor car, the
Yep.
doctor lifestyle, and
Yep.
I'll have made it.
Yep.
Because once I hit that, I realized, man, I'm making $250,000 as my first year salary
Yep.
as a cardiologist in Washington, D.C., which is in Northern Virginia, which is super expensive.
Yeah.
And I feel poorer than when I was a resident.
You had student debt and you had,
At age 33, Felicia, I had a negative net worth of probably $250,000.
Okay. All right. And I'm sure that that is not that unusual in our population of people, of physicians. I mean, everyone I've talked to has six-figure debt. And they all are like what you're talking about. When I'm a physician, when I'm a doctor, when I'm an attending, I'm going to be able to blah, 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 blah. When did the light come on for you?
It started coming on in fellowship where I was like, man, I noticed the attendings, the people I look up to. There's one attending in particular where he lived in the hospital. I'm like, why don't you have a wife, a kids? Like, why aren't you going home? He's like, oh, but I'm gonna miss the call. I'm gonna miss the admission. I'm gonna miss that. And then, we're in cardiology. So in the cardiology, you go to the cath lab. In cath lab, there's radiation, right? There's
Yeah.
radiation coming down on you. You're wearing lead.
Yeah.
And his fingernails, because he was in the cath lab so much, they all had turned black. I'm like, damn, like this is not right. Now that I'm not really actively practicing, I'm going to pull back the kimono here and share with all your audience. I mean, there are people in my fellowship who are my attendings who are doing phantom lesions, phantom stenting.
Yeah.
So that's when I said, I will never let medicine run my financial situation. So I made that declaration. And the first year of my training, I was 33. I was like, I clearly remember this. I was driving in my car and I was like, if I'm still practicing by the age of 40, something went terribly wrong in my life.
Wow. Okay. Wow. I didn't have that kind of, there wasn't if I'm still practicing, but it was like, for me, less than 5 years in, this is not what you're here to do. This is not it. And it took me longer than 40 to get out of it, but yeah.
And that doesn't mean like I just didn't want to be dictated by medicine. I could practice, I could do medical missions, I could do charitable work, I could do the functional medicine stuff, but clocking in, clocking out, taking my W-2 home and using that to pay my mortgage was not any longer acceptable. And I officially wanted to give up the handcuffs. I want to go get on my soapbox and rant a little bit, Felicia. Here, I'm going to rant here. So I think physicians not only understand the golden handcuffs, they actually like it. They have Hermes handcuffs. They have Gucci handcuffs. They get so comfortable with those handcuffs that they decorate them. They make them super high end, but they're still handcuffs. They don't realize it though.
And I don't know that they're comfortable as much as, well, I have the handcuffs on. I might as well make them pretty. I might as well make them the best handcuffs I can make them because there's not another thought on how to do this, or they're so busy in what they're doing as physicians. They don't have the thought process, the mindset to think that there is something else I could be doing than just making my handcuffs better. Let's get to that because both you and I have found something that can get us out. We can practice. And I know people love practicing medicine. We both know there are people that love it, and thank God there are. But it shouldn't be something you absolutely have to do. You shouldn't have to sacrifice your family, your health, your own life for other people's. That just makes no sense to me. So let's talk about what you got into and just how did you start? How did you even get to Like you said, if I'm doing this at 40, this is not it. Okay, now what?
So I made the declaration. So that's important. Making a declaration of some sort for what you believe and what you want, your authentic life has to happen. And if you don't make the declaration, then other people will declare your life for you.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is you're telling your conscious and subconscious and maybe your super conscious brain, here is our destination. Here's our North Star. Everyone pay attention. Let's
Mhm.
go. And so then I'm like, all right, I had no clue how to get there. And that's the problem. We as physicians get paid a lot of money to be very sure before we make any decisions. And we get punished for mistakes, which in life is sort of opposite.
Yeah.
To be a highly successful entrepreneur, to be a creative, to be a visionary, you actually get paid to make experiments. Instead of I call them mistakes, we as entrepreneurs call them experiments. You take a lot of experiments, you see where you're getting traction, and then once you get that hit, and as long as it's in alignment, you double down.
Yeah.
I read a lot of books, the Kiyosaki's, the Tony Robbins, the Peter Drucker's, Warren Buffett books. I mean, and I was just throwing all this stuff into my brain and seeing what's stuck. I didn't have the emotional resilience to even go down this road yet. So I had to
Yeah.
build that.
Yeah.
I was pretty weak emotionally. I was pretty weak financially, and I was pretty weak physically. I mean, I tore my ACL in fellowship. So I was like, all right, I need to work on a lot of things here. And so I started working out. I had no free time. So I'm like, let me manufacture free time. Enter the world of the 4:45 wake up, right? So I joined the 4 a.m. club, right? I had to. Why? Because I have young kids. Why? Because my wife is a physician. Why? Because I was on call the night before and I had to do post call stuff and there's only very limited time. So that extra time allowed me to work out. Then after working out a while, then I started ingesting all this self-development stuff
Yeah.
and financial intelligence and literacy. And then I said, let me start taking action. And so I started my first company where I was a medical staffing business where I got a contract with a long-term care facility. They needed fellows or residents to staff it at night. I took the master contract and then I subcontract out to my people. I took a little slice off the top and I started my first little medical staffing company. I'm like, oh, cool. This is awesome.
That's okay. So I hope everybody heard that because it was a lot of time. Even if it wasn't a lot of time over years, it was a lot of time every day of building up, getting the knowledge, getting the mindset, changing his mindset, and then taking a chance. Because I mean, did you know anything about medical staffing business before
Zero.
like you just like, okay, let's give it a shot. But everybody doesn't have to do that, number one, and we're going to get into that. But you do, the first thing you said was make a declaration, decide this is what's going to happen. You don't even have to know how it's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. And all the things will line up to help you get there.
Yeah, I just something came to my mind. Let me see if I can capture it here. Okay. So first it's ideation, then it's selection, then it's declaration, then it's execution, then it's celebration.
Okay. Ideation, I have the idea.
Yes. You
So it's the
have to
second.
have an idea. You have to think. You have to decide on. You have to just get something in the brain. Ideation. Then you got to select something. Not everything you select is going to be right, but the process will help you determine whether you should continue along. So, ideation. Then you got to select something,
Okay.
right? Then you declare it. Like this is what you're going to do. Then course correction. Along the way, you course correct, right?
Yep.
Execute finally, right?
Yep.
And then you get to celebrate
You
then.
celebrate. If we think about in medicine how we practice, so for those of you that are practicing, this is what we do every day. These are the steps you take to treat a patient every day, even if you don't think about it that way. So this is a different way to think about your actual own life and how you can move it along to get to the things that you want to do. I love that. That was really good. Okay. So I did all those things. You started that first company. What
So
happened
far, I
to
started the first company, and I actually sold it to my buddy before I left fellowship for $25,000. And I was like, man, this entrepreneurship thing, not too bad.
Yeah.
And for us, man, that's a lot of money for us. That was like, okay, that changed my world. And then when I started practicing, then Within a couple of years of practicing, I realized, okay, within my own practice, let me optimize my medical income. So what I would do is, can I sign up, become the echo director? Can I do the nuke director? Or can I open up our office in another place? Can I expand our practice? And I did all these things. But what happened was the private practice I was working for, they're like, this is great, but your RVUs are down, or your RVUs are not as much as someone else.
Mhm,
But I'm like,
mhm.
dude, I'm growing the whole pie for everybody.
Yeah,
And I was not rewarded for entrepreneurship. I was rewarded for activity,
yeah,
not ingenuity.
yep,
So
yep,
then I just realized that. Then I created a pulmonary hypertension part of our practice. Then I created a preventive cardiology part of our practice. I was going on local TV, doing things called cooking with the cardiologist, where I was emphasizing natural strategies. I had an idea to create a fish oil that was branded for our practice, and they're like, "That's crazy. We don't do that kind of stuff." And then after hitting all these things, and literally they're like, all right, you're 3 years in, you should buy into our practice. $400,000 buy in. You're going to be full partner and you're going to just go with us and you'll retire one day and be
yeah,
happy. So I politely declined. I'm like, you know what? I don't see my future going this way. I want to be a high paid employee at this point,
yeah,
because at that point I had ideas.
yeah,
So then I started training in functional medicine, and my idea was one day to launch a functional medicine clinic, which I did. And then I negotiated with my group, because one of the things people think is, hey, this guy's reckless. He takes risks. But what I've done is every time I'm an entrepreneur, I would mitigate the risk. I would minimize the risk. So what I did was I told the group, hey, 4 days a week I'm with you. One day a week across the river, I'm going to launch my own practice. That was not risky at all, because if the practice failed, I'd close it down and just go back to the group.
yeah,
I can
yeah,
always buy into the practice later. So realize, physicians, that you have power. You have one of the best backups in the world. You're a neurologist, you're a plastic surgeon, you're a radiologist, you're an ENT doctor. You can do locums. There's so much power as a physician.
you're not stuck. Bottom line is you get the ideas, understand what else is out there. If what you're doing is not the thing for you, it's not really that risky to step away. It really isn't. It might feel scary. Number one, it's scary. And you do things every day with fear. Just think about it. Every day you're doing something and there's a fear behind it a little bit, a little bit. But it's done. You do it. And I love that, talking about the risks and people looking at us thinking you're reckless, but what it's taking a risk. It's taking a step out, because and we've definitely thought about all the risks and what can happen if that risk happens, or how am I going if that problem happens, how am I going to fix that, or how am I going to keep it from happening? It's a completely different way to think. And it's not, but it's not really, because we think that way in medicine. And you think about, if you're going to go put up a stent, all the risks that could happen, and what am I going to do if this happens or that happens, that happens? You think about it every single time. Or you're about to do any kind of surgery, you've already gone through your mind, if I cut, this is how I fix that. If that happens, this is how I fix that. So we do it every day. We just don't do it outside of medicine on a regular basis. And that's where I think both Vikram and I really push and want docs to think outside of medicine about the rest of their life the same way they think about medicine. Okay, so sorry, I got on my rant on that one.
I love it. And the thing, guys, as physicians, the worst case scenario, like my worst case scenario in life right now is I have to go back to being a cardiologist and make 500,000 a year. Okay. Wow. Really risky there. Woo. Right? I go to zero.
100%.
Literally, like I go to zero. You take all my real estate away from me. You take all my businesses, everything away. Okay, fine. I'll just go do some CMEs, get recertified, and go practice. And I'll be happy. I'll
Yep.
practice for like 10, 20, 30 years and I'll enjoy my life. Not a
I
big
don't
deal.
think you'll be happy, but you'll do it until you get to figure out the other things that
Right.
you could do, right? It's
Right.
like there's always, it's like I have this degree, and this degree is never going away. Never going away. It's always the backup plan. So I love it. I love it so much. How did you get into real estate?
So when I wanted to start this clinic, this functional medicine integrative, sort of like I want to help reverse disease instead of just manage it. I knew I wanted to go cash based and concierge, but it was a risk. And again, I keep telling you guys, I'm actually very risk averse. So everything I do, I always have a backup of a backup of a backup. So one, I always had my foot in the door with my traditional practice while I started this functional practice. Number
Uh-huh.
two, I was like, how do I replace all my income so then I can essentially practice for free if I wanted to?
Mhm.
And so then I was like, okay, well, I tried options trading. I got my butt kicked repeatedly. Didn't work out. I did it on nights and weekends. No risk. I lost about $27,000, I think. Okay. I even had a coach. I'm just not good at it.
Yeah.
Okay. Seemed complex. All right. I know plumbers who are successful in real estate. I know dentists. I know like janitors who can make it in real estate. I think I can figure that out. So we did some single family homes. I couldn't afford to do it in DC. It's too expensive. My wife also made a restriction on me. You can't do anything under your primary name and you can't use our name to get a mortgage. And so
Mm,
now I had to be back like everybody else, creative financing.
yeah.
And so we bought up, and my dad was in Atlanta. So we bought our first home for $27,000, fixed it up, sold it for like 50, did it again, sold another one for 80. And then I was like, all right, this is interesting. And so we built up a 30 home portfolio. But because we're doing the Burr method, which is I don't know I forgot what the acronym is, but essentially you suck out all the equity in one deal, roll it over the next one, do it again, do it over the next one.
Yeah.
So on paper, I had a lot of property, like 30 deals, but there's not much cash flow because everything was juiced out.
Yeah. Got
So
it.
I was like, all right, this is cute, but it's not going to dramatically change my life. I mean, as a cardiologist, I was pulling in, 200, 300, 400K. So I'm
Yeah.
like, how do I do that? And so one time I heard this guy come to one of our real estate meetings and he was talking about multifamily and syndications and it sounded illegal. It sounded crazy.
That can't be real, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you get these people, they'll pay you just because you do the deal for them. And then, you sell it in a couple of years and it'll be double everyone's money and you'll get paid. And I'm like, oh my God, you know, either I'll get arrested or I'm going to be pretty well off. Well, I did my due diligence. It seemed okay. So, and nowadays, I mean, you drive into like a supermarket, you'll run into a syndicator. They're very prevalent. I was maybe second generation OG. In 2015, there weren't many of us out there, especially physicians.
You're right. You're right. I think I started in like 18 and I went to my first conference where I heard about syndication in about 15. Yeah.
Yeah. I was definitely the talk of the physicians lounge. They're like, dude, that guy's lost it. I don't know. What's he up to? Not sure. And so me and my buddy launched Viking Capital, and I don't want to get into the whole backstory of that, but we ended up launching this company. I helped a group who was already doing this do 3 deals. Like we would just do, the only thing we could bring was we didn't have anything. We didn't have expertise. We didn't have knowledge. We didn't have real estate this level experience. But we were surrounded by an interesting group of people. They're known as physicians. And physicians also have something, they don't have much time and they have sometimes disposable cash. So we would leverage that, bring those guys in. They trusted us not because of real estate, but they trust us because we were pretty good doctors and they knew us as people.
And they knew where you lived if something went bad.
Yeah. So we learned the game, brought those guys on. Things got bigger and bigger. The people we were working with promised us that they get us our own deal. But once they saw all the money they were bringing in, I'm like, why the heck would we let them go do their own thing? We want them to stay with us. We saw the writing on the wall. So we ended up saying, you know what? We're just going to figure this out on our own.
Okay.
So we ended up doing our first deal together in 2015. And now it is 2016. We ended up doing our first deal. Like that was ours. And now it's 2023. We're close to the $800 million mark of assets under management. We've raised probably close to $250 million of private equity all the country from investors and sponsors. And then we're on track to really hit $1 billion probably next year. And it's amazing. And the cool thing is I have more free time now than I've ever had in my whole life.
Nice. Let me ask you this. How did you get that first physician to part with their money and invest in the thing?
So
Was that a hard thing to do?
It is hard, but it's not because of them being hard. It's hard for me to do it. One, I had to get over the fact that I was like completely foreign to this concept. And I said, okay, well, how do I say the words? How do I help? It's just like doing your first central line.
Yeah.
Like, very scary. Like doing your first colonoscopy and don't want to tear anything, right?
Your first cystoscopy, your first one of those first in medicine. Yes.
Exactly. Your first delivery of a baby. Oh my God, what if it doesn't come out, So all of this, right? So I would think those are more scary than asking someone for 50K, or 100K. But that being said, it was scary. So I read the packet. I tried to understand as much as I could. And they would ask me these questions like, hey, why is cash flow so low in year 1? How do you expect us to have the 2x multiple in year 5? So
Yeah.
I had no clue. So I'm like, hey, that's a great question. And I'm really busy right now with this case. I'll call you in the afternoon and we'll discuss further. Then
Yep.
I would go call the sponsor of the deal and say, hey, they asked me this and this and this. What do I say? Then they would feed me the answers.
Yep.
And pretty soon after the third or fourth one, I'd start picking up things. And I'm like, I don't need to go back to them. I can figure this out on my own.
Gotcha.
And yeah,
Go
that's it. You just
go
build on
ahead.
that. Just build on that.
It's a matter of you stepped out. You had your backup plan, but you stepped out into invest in real estate and to help other physicians invest in real estate. And you were afraid, just like I'm afraid all the time of losing somebody's money. So you worked with somebody who was already doing it, had done it for a while, and you had built your trust in, correct? And now you can help people invest in something with somebody who's already doing it until you got your confidence up and your track record going. And now you're helping people on your own. Yes?
Absolutely.
Got it. That's the way you do it, you guys. You find people you trust, and then you trust them to not hurt you. Nothing's guaranteed. And I'm sure Vikram's had deals that didn't go exactly the way you planned. So have I. It happens. But you know us. If you're invested with us, you know us. Our phone number is in your phone. Hey, what's going on? That's not the same thing with your Fidelity person or your Vanguard person or whoever take your money that you have no idea who they are. This is the way to truly, in my opinion, and I'm going to let Vikram give his own opinion, build your wealth. It's not your 401k. That's not going to do it for you. Tell me your opinion on 401ks. Let's go there.
So I coach a lot of physicians all over the country, Felicia, and I'm known for some contrarian advice. They're in real estate too. It's interesting. They're starting to invest and they're starting to build their portfolios, but they're maxing out their contribution to their 401k. I'm like, okay, you're investing in real estate because it's a higher rate of return, yes?
Mhm.
And actually, because you're controlling the real estate, it's actually very powerful because you control it. So you believe in yourself. And now you're putting and they're not matching, right? You're telling me? Yeah, they're not matching. Okay. So now you're putting all this money there. Best case scenario, 7-8% minus a couple of points for fees. So maybe it's 4 or 5, right?
Mhm.
And it's not liquid, or it is semi-liquid, I guess, but it's a mutual fund. So really not.
Yes.
And it's not going to get you where you want to go. Like I have this amazing slide I remember that I did, where if they invest in the typical S&P 500 versus the S&Me 500,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
Instead of the S&P, invest in yourself, invest in real estate, invest in things that go up in value, that are consistent, that are safe. Like the stocks can go down to zero. Your real estate's unlikely to go to zero.
Unlikely. Yes.
Number
Highly
2, there's
unlikely.
tax advantages. Number 3, it's a physical asset. You can go touch it. A company can usually go out of business.
Mhm.
And within real estate, there's a lot of flavors. You can go very conservative or much more speculative, right? Multifamily is more on the conservative side. Like you
Hmm.
can do, right now, office, a little more speculative, medical office, retail, data storage, self-storage, there's student housing, there's mobile home parks,
There's
there's
resorts.
parking lots, there's resorts, there's
Resorts.
short-term rentals,
There-
hotels. I mean, and the thing is, all you have to do is choose one. And I would say choose the most conservative one that you feel comfortable with, and then invest passively at the beginning. And then if you feel comfortable and this is a part of your thing, then consider going active in a small way. Then slowly take the slider from fully passive to slowly half to maybe fully active. And
That's right.
and get
Yep.
out of this whole thing of, hey, my goal is to replace my medical income with passive income. Passive income is great. I really want you to do it. But the word I want everyone to start using is non-clinical income. Get money outside of medicine. That's all I'm saying. And some it could be active, some it could be passive, some it could be actively passive. Like
Yeah.
I help physicians who want to learn to get into the syndication game. They raise capital and they join us, and I help them. I teach them on the job, and they get paid for it. And then eventually they go do their own things, or they're passive for a while in one asset class, but they're active in a different asset class, right?
Yep.
Or they, instead of real estate, they want to buy businesses. They buy car washes or laundromats or, HVAC companies, and they flip them in 2 or 3 years and make incredible cash flow and money. Or some people are into the crypto craze, and
Yeah.
some made it, some didn't. That's
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
ATM funds. You can buy
Yep.
ATMs. You can do all sorts of
There's
things. Once you make the declaration, then you get the education, then you get the execution, then, like we
You get
talked
to
about, the
celebrate. You get to
celebration.
celebrate.
Right.
And having people to celebrate. So having a group a community that's doing this thing together and be able to celebrate with people that understand the struggle of the whole thing, that's also very key. So being out there and talking to other docs who are not doing that and trying to celebrate with them isn't necessarily as much fun as talking to docs who are doing the same thing that can celebrate with you. I love this really a lot.
And
Uh,
also, guys, a lot of people have the scarcity mindset. Hey, if Tom over there, my partner, does well, I do poorly. But there's an incredible amount of money. In fact, they keep printing more, if you haven't noticed. So money is not on shortage. It's actually in quite high demand. So before you can compound money, you need to compound two other things first. You need to compound your skills and compound your time. Once you compound those 10 things, then your money compounds automatically. And throw in a little bit of leverage, and now you're off to the races. Because right now, all you doctors, all you people, and I'm going to call myself out on this, I used to clock in, and one input of hour equal one output of pay.
mhm,
So it's very linear.
mhm.
So I don't care if you work, even if you make $1 million a year, $2 million a year, you're capped. It may be a bigger cap, but you're still capped. The CEO of your hospital is capped. And guess what? Similar to a sports team, Lakers not doing well, let's fire the head coach. Who do you think they're going to fire there? The CMO and the CEO probably, right? Those
Yeah.
guys, there's a lot of turnover there. But why not build up a reservoir of income, of assets, of wealth, true wealth? Wealth is not income. Income is just transactional.
Yeah.
True wealth are assets. And the name of the game for Money with Mission and Limitless MD and all of these other entrepreneurial-minded physician platforms is we want physicians to own more assets so they can practice how they want, they can live the life they want, they can have the freedom they want, and really thrive.
100%. I love that so much. Thank you. That was perfect. And I would end it there, except I was looking at your website and saw that you gave a talk at the CNN Center and talked about 5 freedoms, the 5 freedoms that created your major pivot point. Just if quickly go through what those 5 freedoms are.
Yeah. Initially, the first half of my life, I was chasing money because I didn't have any.
Hmm.
And now the second half of my life, I'm chasing meaning. And it's really, I want to have a meaningful life. I want to have a life that I put a dent in the universe in a positive way. I want to have a legacy that means something. And I want to enjoy the process as I'm climbing these mountains, these ladders. Like
Yeah.
last year, I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro and it was so tough. It was so difficult. I prepped so much, but it was really grueling. And I was climbing. I was like, man, I just can't wait to get to the top. I just can't wait to get to the top. I was only on the top of the mountain for 15 minutes because it's 19,000 feet. It's not safe to stay on the top of the mountain. You have to come back down.
Yeah.
Altitude sickness and all the other stuff. So you realize you're not on top of a mountain very long. And then what? Are you like when Buzz Aldrin went to the moon, he had something called post moonwalker syndrome. He became an alcoholic, went to drug use. He had no purpose in life.
Hmm.
Realize, guys, it's all about finding amazing mountains to climb and climbing them. But in really, most of the journeys on as you're climbing, the anticipation, the who you become in the process,
Yeah.
and enjoy that peak. Be victorious, but always have something else ready to go after that. Vikram, are you never satisfied? What a crazy life. No, it's called blissful dissatisfaction.
Okay.
I enjoy everything I'm doing. I'm really at peace, but it's also I want to be fully utilized. God put us on this earth to be fully used up. And so literally, let's be fully used in the service of our family, our humanity, of our fellow brothers and sisters, of our passions and a purpose, right? And
Yes.
so I think, and so the 5 freedoms comes from that. It's first, obviously, we all want more money and we want more time. So hence financial freedom and time freedom. Number 3, I think if you don't have vitality, what's the point, right?
Yeah.
Like, a healthy man has 1,000 desires. An unhealthy man only has one,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. That's
And then it's geographic. I love traveling. I love being at different parts of the world. And so imagine having my team was like, oh, by the way, you're going to be in Cancun then. Can you do that meeting? I'm like, yeah, it's a telemeet. I can do it from anywhere in the world.
yeah.
And then finally, it's mindset freedom. Having this bulletproof, resilient mindset. We go through a health challenge, Felicia. We go through a divorce. We go through a lawsuit. We go through our kid feeling sick or maybe a loss of a child. I mean, can you imagine?
Yeah.
having a bulletproof resilient mindset that you can withstand all of that and then come out on top and still be happy, still be generous, still be abundant and give. So that is what I wish for all of your listeners, and great mission.
That's a world mission. I mean, a world vision to me. That is, we wish that I want that for everybody. Thank you so much. One more thing. You and your wife are passionate about women and girls and their education and their empowerment. And you have a charity, or is that your charity? Or are you working with a charity called Girl
Yeah.
Rising?
Yeah, I've worked with that charity for many years and we help sponsor a lot of their main events. And it's beautiful because in Africa, in Middle East, and in Asia, if girls, if they're born to a lower class family, sometimes they're sort of sold as indentured servants to a wealthy family to work
Okay.
instead of going to school. And so this Girl Rising helps free them and put them back into schools.
Love it. I love it. I can't imagine that there's anybody out there that doesn't want to get in touch with you and learn more after this conversation. So tell them how they can do that.
Oh, absolutely, guys. Guys, follow me on YouTube. I just launched a YouTube channel there, so hopefully the links will be below. Come to my website, vikramraya.com, VIKRAMRAYA.com. You'll have access to everything that we do there, the real estate company, the health and wellness, the coaching, anything you need, I'm there. There's a ton of free education as well to help folks, and so please join us.
Perfect. Guys, I know you're not sitting there with paper to write down everything you just said, so it will be in the show notes. Everything that you need to be in touch with Vikram. Thank you so much. This was so good. And you guys, you may need to listen to this more than once just to keep the inspiration going, because I'm fully inspired and ready to go do something amazing with the rest of my day. Take care. See you next time.
You've been listening to Money with Mission. There are projects happening right now where you can have a great financial return while positively affecting the lives of others. To learn more about our opportunities, go to moneywithmission.com.